Hey there guys, this is Slamzaron, aka YouTube's Tasuke. This game has been out for a little bit, but I finally got a chance to finish it after a few weeks, maybe even a month ago, I'd say. And that game I'm talking about is Fate Extella, the Umbral Star. I played the PS4 version, though it recently came out. I say recently, but it's been a little bit. This game kind of fell on the back burner for me because actually, right as this game came out, like a week later, Tales of Berseria came out, so you can probably guess where my priorities were at that time, but I finally finished it and I figured I'd, do my little review thingy for it, as I am known to do for things that I like. I'm quite the fan of the Fate series. I haven't been watching the new anime that's been coming out for it, mainly just because I'm not that interested. I know there's a Fate Extra anime coming out, so I don't know if they'll... I think it's just going to be based on Fate Extra, but I also talked about this on my podcast with my friend Ryo, so if you want to listen to that, there will be a link in the description if you want to hear kind of like a back and forth and, a second opinion on stuff, because we didn't completely agree on stuff, but so that may be more interesting. Either way, I'm just going to review this little game, which is basically a Dynasty Warriors clone. I'll get more into whether or not I liked it or not. I guess we should just go on then. The story basically is that it takes place after Fate Extra. Technically Fate Extra CCC, I think, where you go up to the moon cell. Admittedly, I haven't finished Fate Extra. I'm actually kind of stuck, and I was originally going to wait until after I had finished Extra to play this game, but it got to a point to where I was stuck, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to finish it, so I was like, I'm just going to jump into this game. But even then, from what I can tell, it seems to be kind of taken a lot from Fate Extra CCC, which from what I understand actually has a longer story and a bit like an extra area, I believe. So I believe this game kind of covers stuff that North American fans didn't really get a chance to play, at least. And maybe they'll show it in the anime. I imagine they might. Who knows? But it does take place afterwards. So, depending on who you play as, like with returning characters, they'll recognize you and whatnot. I went by the same name that I did in the in Fate Extra, which was just my regular name, and I chose the male avatar, who's like the ruler of the moon cell and stuff, and he's got the regalia ring thingy that gives him powers and shit. And basically it starts off, you wake up. The only story option they give you to play as at first is Nero the Red Saber, which I'll go ahead and say, sorry if I refer to characters by their class instead of their actual name, because I know that's this thing. Now, it's kind of tough for me to get used to the fact that these characters are going by their actual names now, because at this point there are so many different characters that have the same class. Simply calling them by their class would be a little confusing. Though, in the story, within the context of the story, the other characters do refer to, refer to them by their classes. Like I saw Nero call Tamamo Caster and stuff like that. But from our perspective as the player, they are referred to by their actual name. So like Nero and Tamamo, even the saber from Fate Stay Night, the blue saber, she's referred to as Artora, and she's like the only secret character besides Archimedes, technically, in this game. But basically, you wake up and Nero's all like, I almost called her Saber. She's all like, oh, sup, we're rulers now, and she's really kind of lovey-dovey with you. To be honest, that may bother some people and seem a little out of character, but it didn't really bother me too much, just because it came across more like she just really trusts you. Like the lovey-dovey stuff, that was a little, it did seem a little out of character. I know that's kind of weird coming from me, because usually I'm all for fan service. Heck, Nero is like my favorite saber. She might even be my favorite servant in all of Fate Stay Night. So like, her wanting to be lovey-dovey with me, and there's even a scene where later on where you and they smoochy smooch, and I'm like, oh yeah, should have picked the girl. No, but yeah, basically Tamamo shows up later on during like I think she like is invading the good guy's territory. I say good guys, but like Nero's territory, and she shows up with another master who looks like your player character, but he's wearing blue, or she's wearing blue, depending on who you pick. And there's this giant confusion of like, wait, there's more than one of the ruler for story reasons, but and you get help from this guy named Archimedes and all that stuff. Learn about the Umbral Star and Velber and stuff, and you're trying to figure out why there's more than one master. You learn that he got split into 3 parts: his mind, his soul, and his body. As you can see, as you saw on the cover, and plus if you followed this game through like its development cycle and like from like the Famitsu scans and whatnot, they kind of talked about Altera a fair amount and built her up. I think they even outed her as being Attila the Hun, which this game made it seem like that was sort of a big deal. That was like a big revelation. In typical Fate Stay Night fashion, because like learning a servant's identity can be pretty crucial to defeating them. Like from my perspective as someone who kind of followed this game's development, it kind of came across like, well, yeah, I already knew that. So to me it felt kind of shallow. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily the intention, since I think like most people may not necessarily know that. But that being said, it is kind of cool that we get Attila the Hun as a servant. But anywho, so you then try to figure out like how to, you know, rejoin everyone. And the 3 stories kind of go the same way. You do eventually unlock a 4th where, you know, it's all about like changing stuff, because spoilers, this does involve time travel. But basically, as Nero, you take over Tamamos, and then you beat up Altera. Archimedes reveals himself and is all like, "I'm a bad guy," which I saw maybe like 1 hint in it, so I kind of already knew, but it was still kind of cool. And plus, I like being able to fight him. And one thing I didn't notice was that like when he's revealed as a bad guy, he's shown without his robe, and you see like the part of him that's infected. That was kind of cool. That was a nice little thing. So I was kind of into it for a while. Haven't talked about the gameplay yet, so you can. So far, it's still on good terms, but I'll get into why I'm not too keen on this game overall. And then you win the day, so you think, and yeah, the ending to Nero's like the ending image where it shows the player on the throne, and she's all like, "Oh, you've been sleeping for a long time." It's almost kind of sad in a way, like. It's been a while since I've played that scene, so I don't remember the exact context of it, but it was kind of, it was sort of sombering. Now, Tamamo's story, which is the story you unlock next, that's sort of where I started to lose interest, honestly. I'm going to be frank, I don't give a fuck about Tamamo, I really don't. I didn't pick her in Fate Extra. I don't know hardly anything about her character besides what I saw in this game. Like, I didn't even really know that much. I knew about her, but I didn't really know that much about her character. Playing as her proved to be a bit difficult since she's a caster. So they sort of set up her stats to not really be super like close quarters, even though she like has martial arts and whatnot. I got to where I was able to use her relatively well. But her story, it kind of runs the same. The only real difference is that Elizabeth Bathory goes full-on evil at that point, and that was kind of cool. I think it's cool that we got to see a character turn to the dark side within the story, and I like the setting of like the I think it's the Millennium Capital. I think it's called, that very Oriental Asian-looking area. Like that's probably my favorite level. To be perfectly honest. I think it was really fun to kind of be in that environment and whatnot. But other than that, like, it was more or less the same story, but from a different perspective. And again, I didn't really know her character that well. She was definitely on the super lovey-dovey side. There was even like some implied sex going on. So it was something, and kind of reading all her dialogue was like a bit of a drag too, and I'm just like, what the F? I got a bit of a pain. So I was starting to kind of really lose interest there. Like, I was actually really happy when I finally finished her story. But then you get Altera, her story, which at this point you've learned that, like, which you learned at the after beating Nero's story as well, because, again, spoiler, she's kind of a final boss. She's actually this evil, this, like, god called Saphir. She's, like, suppressed or something, like, the suppressed Saphir. She's, like, this Titan of Velber or something, like this vessel that can, like, destroy stuff. And when you get to her story, you realize that there are actually two different ones you can... Because, like, there's a certain version who's, like, the really cold one that we see, but then there's, like, the sort of nice giant one who's sort of like the at-home version. And this one, this is sort of where the plot starts to thicken even more, because the body starts to kind of figure stuff out. And this is where we actually get to see the split and see, like, quote-unquote, the earliest point of Archimedes' until we unlock his side story, where he kind of goes evil. You have an option when you get to Altera's big form to, like, shoot her with the regalia. From what I understand, if you choose not to, Archimedes will shoot, like, a fireball at her or something. But when you shoot her, when I shot her, he had, like, a little, like, smirk. And they showed, like, his, like, you know, face. He looks kind of, like, smug anyway. And, of course, later on, they draw him looking really psycho to just, you know, show how much of a bad guy he is. But basically, to get back to the point, the big Altera picks you up and is about to kill you after being prodded by Archimedes. And so you, in, like, a last-ditch effort to save yourself, decide to split yourself into 3 parts. The green one being the one that's left with Altera, obviously the red one's with Nero, and the blue one being with Tamamo. But the green one, is the body. I think the red one's the mind, and the blue one is the soul, I believe. But, anywho. And so, with Altera's story, like, you're trying to, like, formulate a plan to kind of fix stuff, because you have, like, this nagging feeling that, like, you're missing something, because, like, you can remember, like, Archimedes' misdeeds towards you. And the first few levels of Altera's story are pretty simple, because they're basically just, like, go to the bad guy and kill. But then it gets back into, like, the typical, like, Dynasty Warriors affair. Which I'll go ahead and say the gameplay, for the most part, is sort of territory-based. It's not like Dynasty Warriors to where it's territory-based and task-based. Like, it's mostly territory-based. I know it's kind of redundant. Territory-based. I mean territory-based. I'll go into more details in a moment. But basically, what's kind of neat about Altera's story is that both versions of Altera that you interact with sort of feel the same thing, because they're the same person, so it's kind of fun to sort of see, like, you sort of, like, soften them up, and I thought that was kind of cool. One of her final images where you finally take care of the big bad guy, and again, which is also Saphir, but then, like, it's kind of weird, like, the servant version of Altera comes back, and that's the one you play as, and you basically do the final boss as Altera, which is kind of weird considering you're supposed to be also fighting Altera. I guess, like, the idea is that the servant has sort of is like a separate thing, even though being part of the same thing at the same time. I don't know. But one of her final scenes is showing her, like, smiley. It's like smiling, and she's all teary-eyed because, like, she's happy and whatnot. And the body, in a last-ditch effort to, like, try and change things, decides to save the memory of everything that had happened and send it to the past with the I don't know if it necessarily chose which one to go with, but it chose the one that you end up going through again is Saber, Nero, and the mind. And this is sort of where I kind of got back into it. I don't know, like, I think maybe just Tamamo. I just did not care for Tamamo's story, because Altera's I actually sort of got back into it, and I was getting more into the story. And I'll go ahead and say that the next game I'm going to review is Warriors All-Stars. And while I was playing that, you know, I'm like, you know, I'm kind of missing Fate Extella, which thankfully they did announce a sequel, Fate Extella Link, though we've talked about it on the podcast and whatnot. But in the other story, the final fourth story is when you go back to Nero's story, and using what you've learned from the body and its memories, you try to like thwart Archimedes. And one of the first missions you do is to fight him because you finally call him out on it, and they give you a choice of what you want to say, which is kind of cool. And like you call him out for his all his misdeeds and whatnot, and you're able to merge the part of the regalia, and you're basically able to, like, you know, win the day. You're able to sort of soften up the servant Altera, and you're able to fight Velber, like, at its core, with that Saber uses with the power of Venus, using Altera's sword, which is the only thing that can, the Sword of Mars, which is like the only thing to take out Velber. And she gets like this new form where she basically is like, it's like super fan service. Like she's dressed in like this, it's almost like this weird like hentai Saint Seiya thing they've got going on, because she has like the, and it's funny because she has like a, what looks like a collar, but it's like made out of steel. Kind of going with the trend that I've seen with, because I've noticed a lot in like some like Japanese like idol art. I've seen like them wear like collars and with dresses, but like no like upper body part. So it's like literally just a collar and a dress or something. It's sort of like it's sort of shaped that way. I found that kind of interesting. But I think, you know, as horny as a guy as I am, and as much as I would love to do terrible, terrible things to Nero's body, I think at this point in the story, because they were playing her theme too, which her theme is awesome. They remix it from, I assume, Fate Extra. I don't remember hearing it in Fate Extra, or it could be from Fate Extra CCC. And I think Tomo's theme might also be, I assume, because again, I didn't play her story, so I wouldn't know. I assume you fight her in Fate Extra at some point anyway. But anywho, I was kind of, it's like, you know, I like me some fan service. I don't know if this is the right time for it. But yeah, so that's more or less the story. And, you know, even though you feel like, even though because of what you're trying to do, you have to kill Altera, she gets reborn as like a kid, so she comes back. And so that's more or less how it ends. Everything is good, even though they kind of sequel bait a little bit with showing Archimedes being all like, you haven't seen the last of me, there's another star coming. And with Elizabeth Bathory, she's all like, don't think you've won, and all that stuff. So they're gonna come back. I don't know if I necessarily needed to see it. I think honestly, taking Archimedes out, I think they should have just left that out, honestly, and because then it could be more of a surprise if in Fate Extella Link, if Archimedes shows up. I think it would have been a lot better that way. Elizabeth, showing Elizabeth, I think is fine, because you can maybe say like, oh, you know, she's the new antagonist, and then like at the last minute Archimedes comes back and like beats her up and is like, I'm the real bad guy. But yeah, other than that, like, the story was okay. I was into it in Nero just because like it was my first, you know, go at it. Tomos is where I started to kind of lose interest pretty heavily, but Altera's story is where I came back, and of course the fourth story with Nero is where I was back into it as well. The music was also pretty good. A lot of techno-y sort of music. Again, I really like Nero's theme. I really like Nameless, I guess I'll call him, Archer's theme. It's funny, there's a funny scene where like while Saber's trying to like name off all the soldiers in her army, like, because your character has already experienced it and he remembers this time, he like interrupts her and like names. I thought it would have been funny if like he actually knew who Nameless was. He's like, and this is the Archer. Emia. That would have been funny. His theme is also pretty good. It's a remix of the theme from the visual novel, the Emia theme. I don't know if it's any specific version, but it is a remix of that, and it sounds pretty good. It's a cool song. I like that, and I also like obviously Nero's theme. I think Artoria might also have a theme. I don't remember. You have to kind of work to unlock her. There is a video that shows you how to unlock her. Honestly, I didn't really find it. Maybe it's because I already knew, but I didn't really find it that big a deal when I tried to unlock her. I was able to get her pretty easily. I followed it like step by step though, is the thing. But it seemed like everything kind of fell into play. I can kind of see where it would be a bit of a pain though, because you have to get like these like, you know, RNG based drops. I think I might have gotten lucky, but I got her, and you know, for what it's worth, like it's cool. I played as her a little bit, and I've only played as her. I've only played as the characters they make you play as, so Nero, Altera, and Tamamo. And then I played a little bit as Gawain. I played a little bit as Kuka Lane, who's Lancer. And I played as Archimedes, so I can get his backstory. And then I played as Artoria a little bit. She played more like what you would expect. They kind of change up Nero's playstyle a little bit. I feel like ultimately for the I understand they wanted to make her different, especially considering we have like the classic Saber here as well. But I feel like I don't know. I kind of liked when she sort of fought like Saber, where like she two-handed her sword and whatnot. Where now she just one-hands her sword with a weird shield, which is like I don't even know if you really needed that. But you know, she was pretty fun to play as, and I kind of got into a rhythm with her. Since they make you go through play as her like twice because of the story and whatnot. But everyone, from what I played okay. And yeah, music was good. Voice acting was pretty good. Nero, I think Sakura Tange, who voices her, who also does Sakura and Cardcaptor Sakura, she stole the show. Like there was one part where like she and the master were about to bang. This was in the 4th story, and then Tamo breaks in, and she kind of like was like, "What the fuck are you guys?" And then when Nero finally speaks, she has like this really, like she does get like she does yell, but like at first she kind of has like this sneer. Like I am definitely Team Umu because she says Umu all the time. I just hearing like she's just awesome. Like Nero is like probably my favorite. Is definitely my favorite servant. Kind of wish she would dress more like Artoria when she was in the casual stuff, but you know, we all can't be weirdos. But yeah, like she stole the show for me. Tomokazu Seki as Gilgamesh also sounded really good. I feel like it kind of brought me back to like Fate Zero when I heard his performance there. I'm like, wow, this is really fucking good. Everyone else did a pretty banging job. I think the guy who voices Archimedes is also the guy who's voicing Serpico in the Berserk anime currently. But yeah, that's more or less it for non-gameplay stuff. Gameplay stuff, like I said, it's a Dynasty Warriors clone, and in terms of like the levels and like objectives, it's all territory based. Basically, you have to complete the matrix, basically like take over all the territories and like get like the highest points and all that stuff. And that's not really a big deal. That's sort of some Dynasty Warriors Empire stuff where like it's basically just about taking over the entire area. They don't really make you take over everything. It's more about like completing like this point thing. I think it's called like the regime matrix. And each territory has like a certain number. Like if you take over one that has 5, you'll get 5 points. And once you know kind of like how to manage that, it's not that bad. It's sort of sectioned off like the PSP versions of the Dynasty Warriors games, and I think also Samurai Warriors was like this as well, where it's all one big map, but they're all sectioned off. And because this is on PS4, I play it on PS4, it's also available on the Vita, PC, and the Nintendo Switch, which I kind of wish I had the Nintendo Switch version, because I probably wouldn't have been able to finish it quicker, because then I could just play it on my bed before I go sleepy sleeps. Plus, there's also the extra costume for Nero, where it's like the Fate Extra CCC Burnt Bride costume or whatever. And I think the PC version might have also gotten that. I don't know. That might be exclusive to Switch. I'm not sure. But gameplay-wise, it played how you would expect. You know, the Noble Phantasms, those are kind of cool. I never really got a chance to use them because I didn't realize exactly how to do them until later on with like the little chip thingy. But I used the circuit thingy. I think it's called Extella circuit or something. The one where you press circle and you keep pressing circle and it uses up your gauge, and then you keep attacking, and then you do a big cool move. I use that a lot. And also became a big fan of the dash and the dash attacks. Those were pretty useful. But I more or less played it like a Dynasty Warriors game. After playing it, I feel like that was probably a mistake in my mentality a little bit, because I feel like, gameplay. Like, for one thing, they give you a lot of enemies, so like getting well over 1,000 is pissy. Like, I think the highest I got was maybe like 10,000 or so, maybe even 12. I'm not sure. Whereas in a regular Warriors game, getting to 1,000 or even 2,000 or even 3,000, if you're that good, is like you're rewarded for that. And they reward you here as well. Like, they're like, oh, you've killed that many enemies. They also do the same thing for 500, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, it's kind of cool. But enemies, they constantly respawn. It works in the typical fashion of like taking over territories. You defeat the main boss after you've done enough damage. Here, it's more about getting the gauges up, so enemies will continue to respawn until these aggressors show up, and you kill the aggressors. There's usually more than one, and then you take over the area. Whereas in other Warriors games, it's like you kill all the soldiers there, and then the base commander shows up, and then you kill the base commander, and then you take over that area. And I think even in some older games, you would just kill all the soldiers, and then basically you win that area. It's like that. A lot of times you'll have to defend your area against weak enemies, and that's going to bring me to my main issue. Like, it seemed like even on like the first level, like my teammates were always like struggling. It's like, oh man, we're about to die. Like, oh, we're about to lose. And then they do this thing where like the enemy's about to win, because if they get the regime matrix, if your enemy gets the regime matrix, you lose. Just like flat out, you lose. But the game kind of like warns you about that. Like, you'll get like the warning thing, and then you have to like rush over. And, like, I just felt like the game was like a little. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it was. I don't know if it's too harsh, or it was like. I don't know. Like, it just seemed like it was trying to make the stakes a lot worse than it was, and it was like, and I think part of my issue maybe was also that I was kind of playing it like a regular Warriors game, where I would try to focus more on the main objective and try to get that done as quickly as I could, which that didn't always work. There is one level in Altera's story where you're basically you start losing the fight. Like, it's already at the warning thing. And I'd been playing the game at normal at that point. I got to a point to where I'm just like, I'm just playing the game on easy, because I'm already like not having that much fun anymore. So I put the game on easy. It made like a marginal difference. It still felt pretty hard, in my opinion, but it was a bit more manageable. The characters with hyper armor was a bit annoying. Really, it was just, I think, Gilgamesh and Iskander, who's a rider in Fate Zero. Those were really the only characters that had like the big one. They put Lu Bu in this game too, which that was kind of something. I kept expecting him to have like the hyper armor, then basically say like, try to avoid him, and then be like, I will not pursue Lu Bu. Which that's a thing. But yeah, that was just kind of annoying. I felt like the game was like, it was like the game was putting a little too much pressure on me, and it made me feel like I was losing all the time. And I'm just like, I don't like that. Like, it's okay to like, and not to mention like my characters would get beaten by like the basic, aggressors, and like my aggressors would happen to lose to them. I'm just like, what's the difference? They are the same enemy. They're the same characters. I'm probably gonna be fighting like a you can attack this person version of this enemy. I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, it was just kind of annoying. And that sort of took away part of the fun for me. It's just like I felt like maybe like they had because I believe the people who actually developed this was Marvelous, the same people who own Xseed. I believe they're the ones who developed this, and I don't know, maybe they watched footage of Dynasty Warriors and thought, oh, there's always something being said about like, your base being in trouble, or your enemies or your allies are dying. It's like, well, and that may be the case, but like, it doesn't happen all the time. And even if it does happen, you can still win. Which you to this game's credit, you can still win that way. You can ignore your allies' pleas for help. Now, granted, it's not a good idea, because the servants in this game are pretty beefed up. both on your team and off, or I'd argue almost completely on their team, and on your team they're like weak shit. It seemed that way to me because it seemed like they were always losing, even against the aggressors. I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Like, am I expected to take these characters and grind them in their side stories? Because you do get their side stories where you can, because you have this, like, little room thing called My Room where you can talk to them and upgrade yourself. And you get that as well for, like, the other characters. You can do little side missions to kind of see, like, what they were up to. And you unlock the one for Archimedes after you beat all 4 stories and you learn his side of things. And frankly, I felt like his motivation was kind of weak. Like, yeah, like he was corrupted by Velber and whatnot, but it almost kind of seemed like he either allowed it or like he got spent. I was like, wait, what? Like, I was a little confused on what exactly happened because you basically, you start off playing as you do the final boss of the entire game. Like, you do Velber as level 1 Archimedes, then you do Saphir afterwards, and then you do a mission where in like the city level where you talk to Elizabeth Bathory and stuff. And I just found his motivation kind of weak. It just kind of seemed like they just made him evil just because, like, he was already doing the whole like, I don't understand why I'm losing. I'm such a calculated person. I calculate everything. I'm just like, okay, cool, good for you. Like, I felt like his motivation was weak, and I felt like his character was a little weak. He's not exactly the most unique villain, and honestly, maybe I'm being a little too harsh with this game just because, like, I had been playing Warriors games back to back to back, so, like, I feel like as soon as I started playing this game, after I'd wrapped up, like, Berseria and all the other stuff I was playing, like, which was, you know, Berserk and the Band of the Hawk, and then Samurai Warriors Spirit of Sonata, then this, and I also finished Warriors All-Stars, and I'm probably going to jump back into Dragon Quest Heroes 2 at some point. It's like, good lord. Lots of Warriors games. Lots of Warriors games. But, so yeah, maybe I'm being a little too harsh, but frankly, like, I like this game, but it's more along the lines of decent and okay, rather than, like, good or great. Like I said, you know, Tomo's story just almost killed it for me. Like, that was just, I didn't enjoy that at all. The writing was good. There were some typos, and I liked the script choices. I thought it was good. And the voice acting was good. The music was good, you know. And all that stuff. I liked Nero's story. I liked Altera's story. I liked Nero's second story. Archimedes' story, I felt like I didn't really need to know. Or, like, I would have been better off not knowing because it, frankly, wasn't that interesting and that unique. The sequel bait at the end, again, take Archimedes out. You can keep Elizabeth, that's fine. And in regards to, like, costumes, because you do get costumes in this game, I actually got the DLC and whatnot. They kind of missed an opportunity with Artoria, because the only real costume they give her, besides, like, this dress thing, they give her weird fucking melty blood thing where she wears the hat and the shorts, and then she's got, like, her blue with the yellow stripe hoodie. I'm like, really? That's the outfit you give her? I'm thinking, like, I think they should have, if not the blue skirt and white blouse that she wears in Fate Stay Night, maybe give her the dark suit she wears in Fate Zero, or even the one in the Unlimited Blade Works where she's wearing her blue scarf and the white jacket, like, because that's sort of like an alternative costume for her. Like, I think they should. I feel like they missed an opportunity there, and I think I don't know, giving them more casual stuff I think would have been better. Plus, they kind of give. I feel like they should have given more costumes. Basically, is what I'm getting at. But you know, it is what it is. And there was a lot of DLC, and maybe someone made a mod of it on the PC version because it's not like there isn't a model. It's not very high quality, but there is a model of it. If you want to take the model from Fate, Unlimited Codes, I guess if you're going to do that, you can also get the Saber Lily and Saber Altar as well. Which, you know, also, you know, the lack of other characters. I think Fate Extella, I think, is meant to just be like a sequel to the Fate Extra continuity. So I'm thinking, if you're not going to put any more characters in, maybe take Artoria out. Because her being there is going to kind of, not only is it going to make the game seem more like a Dynasty Warriors crossover thing, which You know, kind of like what Dragon Quest Heroes was doing. Because, you know, like, not only is it an original story with a Dynasty Warriors gameplay, but, like, all your favorite characters from Dragon Quest are in it. Like, if they're not going to go that route, then I'd say maybe take Artoria out, perhaps. Otherwise, what you could also do is, you can keep her. They already said they're going to have every character, so we already know that, like, Archimedes and Artoria and all of them are going to be coming back, so that's cool. Hopefully we'll get more costumes, which in my opinion would be pretty cool. But, yeah, I guess I'll say overall, good effort, decent effort. I think there's a lot of stuff they did right with this game. I also think there's some stuff they did wrong, like, story, that's kind of hit or miss anyway. Especially since I'm a writer, so, like, you know, it's not going to be perfect either way, so I'm not going to count that necessarily against it, in terms of, like, it was wrong, you need to fix this. It was more my enjoyment, because, like, I frankly, like, I didn't really give a shit about Tama, and I kind of lost interest there. It became a bit of a drag, and I felt like, even then, I felt like scenes kind of dragged on too long anyway. But Nero's story I liked, and Altera's story I liked. Archimedes I didn't. Nero's second one I did. I might maybe play some others. I'm probably just gonna show regular stages from the main story in the footage, but you know, you'll know, and you'll see by the time this goes out. The music was good, but the gameplay I felt like was it was a little too harsh, and it was getting a little annoying. How, like, it seemed like I was always, like, on the risk of losing, and even in the instance where, yeah, I was losing, it's just like, that doesn't make sense, because servants should not be getting beaten by aggressors. I don't know, maybe I just got screwed by the RNG, which sucks. I don't know, maybe someone might be playing, like, what the fuck were you thinking? This game is, you know, I did good. Again, if you want to hear, like, a back and forth between me and my friend Ryo talking about this game, then listen to the podcast. That'll be pretty dope. But overall, I'm going to give this game a 7.5 out of 10, which for me is actually kind of low, because I usually rate games at, like, or at least currently. I mean, I'm not saying that a 7 is bad. I know that a lot of people will give you the impression that, like, anything under an 8 is bad. That's not really the case with me. Especially a 7.5 of all things, but it's a 7.5 out of 10 for me. It wasn't perfect. It was kind of decent, and if you like the Fate series, then you might like this game. And who knows, if it really was an RNG thing, maybe you'll have a better time than I did. Also, if you're not really that much of a Warriors fan to begin with, you might be a little more lenient with the issues that I found, if you agree with me. And if you don't, that's fine, but, you know, yeah. Still a decent game, and if you like Warriors games, I'd recommend it. I mean, it's a fun genre. It's more or less like the modern beat-em-up, so, yeah. Guess that'll more or less bring this to a close. Decent game, 7.5. That's not too bad, but not perfect. It was an adequate game. It was a decent game, but not perfect. And for me, kind of on the lower side, but, you know, that is what it is. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. This is Flames Around Tasuke signing out. See you later.